How is it going, everyone? In this video, I want to highlight a couple of the upcoming PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 games that might not be getting as much buzz as some of the other games that are coming up. Some of these games definitely do have a bit of hype surrounding them, others not as much, but I wouldn't put them anywhere near the category of the absolute top most anticipated titles, but I still think they are games you should be well aware about. I'm going to try to do this relatively frequently, and please leave in the comment section down below, out of these games, which ones interest you. If you think there's any games that I should mention in a future video that maybe I'm not even aware about, let me know in the comment section down below and I'll do my best in keeping up with that. But let's get right into it. Want to keep it to 5 games to just make sure I can talk about each of them a decent bit. So let's start off with The Day Before. Now this is a game that I would say a decent amount of people do know about. It's an open-world zombie survival game, and the biggest description I usually see about this game is it's some of the Division, and it's crossed with a little bit of The Last of Us, obviously with that zombie element, and you get The Day Before, which visually is a very, very good-looking game, and it's definitely going to be something where if it does nail the multiplayer elements, I see this being a relatively popular game. The description notes The Day Before is an open-world MMO survival set in a deadly post-pandemic America overrun by flesh-hungry infected and survivors killing each other for food, weapons, and cars. There's going to be a lot of exploring in the game where you're going to go through various vehicles, houses, and skyscrapers, and you're going to look for resources because resources is key in the game to make sure you make it to the next day and continue to progress through the game. But obviously, as you go into specific areas, you are going to encounter zombies, you are going to encounter the infected, I should call it. But you'll have to crush the infected and other players with realistic weapons, becoming a legend of the new world, and it is a vast post-pandemic world. Explore beautiful yet dangerous places with stunningly detailed visuals, and I do have to say, based on the gameplay that we've seen thus far, this is a very, very visually appealing game. Like, I wouldn't say it's the best looking game I've ever seen, but you always have to keep your expectations a little bit more in line when you have these bigger MMO survival style games, and that's really what they're going for. And if you want to survive in a game, you'll need other survivors to help you on your tasks, and you'll have to find a colony of survivors, take part in the restoration of the former society before it's too late. In the survivor colony, you can sell your loot and communicate safely with other players and then plan out your next moves. Now, the game is scheduled for release on PC first, but it will ultimately be coming to PlayStation as well. Right now, it is noted just for a PS5 release, and I think it'll be sticking to a PS5 release, but we'll see how that turns out. Again, June 21st for the PC release of the game. Release dates always fluctuating in this era, but we'll keep you guys posted on that. If you're into multiplayer survival games, definitely one you should keep on your radar, for the rest of 2022, and hopefully the release date on PC hits, and then maybe we'll get it on PlayStation 5 in the latter portion of the year. Next up, here's a game that I am personally incredibly excited about, and if you're a fan of JRPGs, this should definitely be on your radar, going a little bit under the radar, I would say, and that is Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. Now, if you played JRPGs back in the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 era, and you're familiar with Suikoden, however you want to call it, Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes is going to be right up your alley, as that's what they're really going for, and you even have developers that were behind some of those titles, and with the idea of 100 Heroes, again, calling back to those games. Now, this was a game that was funded via Kickstarter and had an incredibly successful Kickstarter campaign, which allowed them to hit a bunch of stretch goals extending the game. Initially, they were looking at funding around the 53 million yen range, but at the end of it, they ended up getting 481 million yen and change. So yeah, they hit all the stretch goals, and some of those include a Fortress Town mode, consoles coming. Originally, it was just scheduled for PC. You got a cooking minigame, new game plus, new sound effects, Chinese localization, a guild system, a bunch of characters, as I mentioned, fishing minigame, racing minigame, hot springs, Russian language, voiceover and cutscenes, which is great, flag design mode, another story, and a bunch more extra. So, and nice to see it get funded so hard because you're going to get a much more complete game at the end of it. This is scheduled for release in 2023, so it's still a ways away, but if you're a fan of Japanese RPGs, man, this is one to keep an eye on. I love the art style. It's designed to bring players a modern take on classic JRPG experiences. Get ready to lead 100 plus playable characters through a worn-torn world only you can save. The game notes, our story begins in the corner of Alron, a tapestry of nations with diverse cultures and values by dint of sword and by way of magical objects known as rune lenses. The land's history has been shaped by the alliances and aggressions of the humans, beastmen, elves, and desert people who live there. The Galdian Empire has edged out other nations and discovered a technology that amplifies the rune lenses' magic. Now the Empire is scouring the continent for an artifact that will expand their power even further. It is on one such expedition that Sane Kessling, a young and gifted Imperial officer, and Noah, a boy from a remote village, meet each other and become friends, and you're off to the races with the story. Hopefully that pans out well. And again, if you were into Suikoden back in the day, 100 plus playable characters, great art style here, and it is scheduled to drop sometime in 2023. Next up, here's a game that came to my attention very recently, and that is The Last Worker. Now, this is a game that you can play in a VR mode, and you can play it with standard controls. The game is noted to be a first-person narrative adventure centered around our struggle in an increasingly automated world. Right away, I was very captivated by the art style of the game. I don't know if everybody's gonna dig the look of it, but I really like the presentation style, a little bit different, and I'm interested to see how that's going to be executed in VR as well. I think that can add another layer to the visual style. The Last Worker is a first-person narrative adventure centered around our struggle in an increasingly automated world, combining a handcrafted art style with uniquely immersive gameplay mechanics in an epic setting. The Last Worker delivers an emotional, thought-provoking, and comedic story packaged with rich characters performed by an all-star cast. You've got hand-painted 3D art, hours of narrative, immersive gameplay, and an environment the size of a sunken city of Manhattan, a unique blend of core gameplay mechanics seamlessly interwoven into a narrative game unlike any other, rich character performed by an all-star cast, emotional-filled music scored by Oliver Krauss, known for his collaborations with Adele, Sia, Florence, and The Machine, and others. Again, The Last Worker is scheduled for release in 2022, sometime this year, and you can play it both in VR and standard mode. Next up, if you've been watching our videos for a little bit, you know I constantly go on and on about how I want to see more big-budget mecha titles. Hopefully we get a new Armored Core at some point. It seems like that's been leaked, but another game, if you're like me and you want more mecha titles that you should have on your radar, is Nimbus Infinity. This is a game that's scheduled to go into early access later this month on PC, so it'll be interesting to follow the development of this game. And Nimbus Infinity is a high-speed mech action game set in the future of a war-torn Earth that has just begun to heal. Equip mechanical battle frames with weapons to customize your battle style and soar through variant battlefields while discovering the story of a new generation. Again, it's more of that mecha action game that I do want to see. Like, we see some mech titles, but some mech titles take on the role of like a strategy game. I want to see a Zone of the Enders style, big budget, action-oriented mecha title. Zone of the Enders, Armored Core, games like that. Yeah, you can have a little bit of strategy, but they are action-heavy, they are a bit over the top, and Project Nimbus seems to be going with that. Again, you've got high-speed mech combat in here, customized weapons and loadouts to better suit one's skill and preferences, variety of new stages, environments, and arena gimmicks, a new story with a new cast exploring the world 21 years after the events of Project Nimbus, the original game, and that game saw a very positive reception on Steam as well. You've got a variety of new enemy types from the first game requiring fighting skills and split-second decisions. Choose your combat stance and best weapon for the job. Missiles, guns, or melee, nothing matters if the ace pilot chokes under pressure. And an epic space saga is noted as well, and you're going to have quite a bit of customizability in the game on top of that. Again, this game is hitting early access later this month, February the 15th. Ultimately, it will see a release on other platforms, hopefully later this year in the latter portion, but I'll keep you guys posted as we hear more on that. And lastly, I do want to give a shout to Voice of Cards The Forsaken Maiden. Now, Square Enix is getting into the card battler scene, and this is the second game in the unique Voice of Cards series where all elements are presented entirely through the medium of cards in tradition of tabletop RPGs and gamebooks. The first Voice of Cards game, while I didn't play it, was generally well received, having a 76 on Metacritic, and this is looking to build on top of that. Voice of Cards The Forsaken Maiden is set on a remote chain of islands that have been protected by the Maidens for generations, but which now face destruction. The hero of the story vows to save the islanders and set sail for the high seas. This is the second game in the series, and while it's not a direct sequel to the Voice of Cards The Isle Dragon Roars, both stories can be enjoyed as standalone game experiences, so you can jump right into this one. The game is scheduled to be released on February 17th, and it will be coming out at $29.99 $9.99 price point, so this one is right around the corner, so I thought I would throw it a mention in this video. But that's gonna do it for me. Again, hopefully with this series I can bring some light on some games that maybe you're not completely aware about. Again, with a game like The Day Before, I think a lot of people are clearly aware about that, but even that, I don't see it getting a ton of buzz. Eiyuden Chronicles, if you're a JRPG fan, I think everybody should know about that. The Last Worker is a game that honestly came to my radar very recently, so there's a lot of games in development that even somebody like me that's super into video games, you know, there's just so much to follow these days, and games do go a little bit unnoticed, and that was exactly the case with The Last Worker, where that game came on my radar probably a week ago or so. And then Nimbus Infinity I've known about for a little while, but I'm such, you know, I got such a kick for mech titles right now, so that one's definitely going to be on my radar. And then, if you're into card battlers, I wanted to give Voice of Cards a mention as well. But that's going to do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.